Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fire Coaching. Today, we have an awesome topic. It's Shreyas and me talking about it as always. And today we are talking about self branding in meetings. I think we were thinking about that topic because right now everyone's in virtual meetings and in meetups and a lot of networking events that are happening online. So it seems like it's a topic that's really hot right now. And what we want to offer you today, or what we want to provide you today, is 5 actionable advices for self-branding in meetings. Like, how can you get the best out of it, and how can you manage your own reputation in meetings? So today we just want to jump right into it and talk about the very first point, and that is being prepared and having something to share. Shreyas, do you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everyone. The first point that we'd like to talk with regards to meetings would be to be prepared in advance for the topic that is set and have a few pointers over which you can build your talk or build your pitch, and at least have a few pointers that you can share as an insight or as a feedback. Why is this important? Is number one, it fosters dialogue. Second, it also showcases that you're prepared and you have a little bit of an expertise to showcase. It might be your boss that is sitting and you need to really get into the minds of your customer, or it should be really appreciated by one and all. So this is one of the key points to remember, is to prepare. And it also boosts your confidence when you're in a meeting, especially since it's virtual. The setup might be a little bit different, so it bodes very well for you to actually prepare in advance, take a few minutes to understand the setup that you're using, and also be mindful of the topic and the time that has been set, because most often in virtual meetings, there's always this issue of overlap between two different speakers. So just to be sure of how the setup or how your software works, just take some time to really understand what is going on. Prepare a few pointers that you can usually stick around the screen so it isn't actually visible to the other person. That is what I do when I'm having a virtual meet. I just write some quick notes on my sticky pad and stick the notes around the periphery of the screen. And yes, as I said earlier, it really boosts your confidence. It shows you're prepared, and the pitch will be really pleasant for the one who is hearing you talk. And having a few pointers to share would mean that you've listened completely and you're sharing your insights or you're sharing your feedback, which really gives out the impression that you're interested, you're involved, and you'd like to listen to people and gain insight and then subsequently offer the right feedback. What you got to add, Melanie, for this?
You mentioned that really important things, right? So if you want to market yourself, you want to look confident, you want to look like you're an expert on something, you want to show people that you own your game, and it's a really great trick. I mean, we say trick, right? I mean, you would say, okay, it's really redundant, and someone says, okay, be prepared. But even if we, I just think about like the networking meetings, or just meetups, for example. How many people have really their pitch prepared before they go into it? And just writing a few things down, or even what I sometimes do is I just write down a few topics. So if I notice that a conversation could break up, I at least have an idea of, okay, where could I pick up on? Or I research what kind of interests does this person have. If I know who I'm talking to, I just write down a few notes and think, okay, this person wrote about this article at some point, or this person is interested in this book, or something like this. So this can be just as much applied to, for example, business meetings. So you want to get the most out of this meeting. So make sure that you are also prepared to add something to the conversation that's valuable. And of course, sometimes there are just like if it's a brainstorming meeting, but even for a brainstorming meeting, brainstorm a little bit beforehand already. Um, that's going to give you like I don't want to say competitive advantage because you're not in competition necessarily with the people that you're in the meeting with, but at least like make sure that you have something insightful to add. And I think this is actually already a transition to the second takeaway or the second tip we want to give. It's about speaking insightfully. And maybe I just say a few words before I hand over, when we can discuss that, Shreyas. So I think speaking insightfully is such an important topic because all of us have been in meetings where people just talked and you think like, okay, okay, okay. But if you really want to manage your reputation and you want people to perceive you as an expert or as someone who really knows what he's talking about, then just say something when it's necessary and then make sure that it has value, that it has something uh, the other people can either pick up on or that adds to the conversation. And don't just speak for the sake of speaking. And I think this is very blunt when I say this, but it's really a so overlooked part of self branding in meetings. I don't know what's your opinion.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree on building your reputation because most often people do not like loose talks or where you're just diversifying without focusing on the main subject. So when you're speaking insightfully, it means you have done your homework, you have done the basic research to understand what you can offer. Because we always say this when we talk, we are the product and we are the brand. So it is very imperative that you talk where there is some good weightage to what you speak, and you also know about the subject that is being taught, which in turn promotes you as an authority, number one. Second, it shows off your confidence and the ability to add your version of whatever is being discussed. And third, it really fosters dialogue once again. So when you're talking and there is some good points to take, obviously people will be inclined to listen to you more. The talk will become interesting to hear, and at the same time it will promote you as an authority on the subject that is being discussed. So the benefits are uh, very much in tune with how you can grow your brand. So you want to have the attention of each and everyone in the audience, although it is really impossible to have it at once. At least for different parts of your talk, you would want to capture majority of the audience, and the best way to do it is to incorporate some great topics in your speech and effectively tell a story. So storytelling and speaking insightfully will definitely help the listeners as well as you as a speaker to maintain that energy and maintain the discussion for a longer time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the important parts there is really like it's not just like for business owners, for example, who start a business, but if you're in a meeting, then also always think about like how do I want people to um, perceive me? Like, what kind of reputation do I want to have? And then, whenever you want to say something in a meeting, think about, am I saying it in a way that aligns with the reputation that I want to have? And is it like, am I saying something that aligns with my reputation, right? So this is maybe to give an example. So if you want to have a reputation of someone who is really sharp, right? Then make sure that you prepare yourself and that you say things that add a sharpness to the conversation, so that you add sharp ideas. So, for example, like from my own experience, people always perceived my ideas as creative. So when I was in a meeting, I wanted to make sure that whatever I add is a creative idea, because this is how I wanted people to, yeah, to perceive me. So this is a really important topic. Like speaking insightfully, I think this is one, probably the most important point of the 5 tips that we have, because this really sets the framework of your self branding in meetings. And it's, as we said, and as Shreya has also just mentioned, it's just so often overlooked, and it's quite like, even though it's so important, of course it takes time, right? It takes effort, it takes work to do this. But that's why sometimes we have such a lovely experience in a meeting, because someone did exactly this work before, right? So yeah, so this was point 2. The third takeaway, or the third tip that we had, was asking good questions. And I would add that, I would hand that over to Shreyas, because he is asking extremely good questions. This is one of his great strengths. So maybe you can also say something about that.
Yes, asking questions is one of the key tools, or rather, the primary tool of a coach, because we don't necessarily depend on assessments, because assessments are just something which will aid us in asking the right questions. So the entire premise of coaching really lies on us asking open-ended, empowering questions. It's just not asking the right questions. You need to really open your question in such a way that it fosters dialogue. It also motivates the other person to think deeply and delve a little bit deeper into whatever topic you want to discuss. So, making it open-ended is really very important, and also making it empowering might be a great add if you're mentoring someone, or if you're in a position of giving feedback. That essentially ties into you being either a key decision maker, or a manager, or a C-suite executive. So you might want to make it empowering, so that your client or your subordinate really feels motivated to take action, and at the same time really thinks on what is being said, so they have an opportunity to interpret in their own way, and also try to find out more, which will help them gain some good understanding of the topic. So, in that way, asking these open ended questions really, one, develops the employee's confidence, motivates them to dig deeper, find out more, get a better understanding, and eventually deliver. And number 3, you're helping them grow personally as well, because you're making them think, so which is in turn preparing them for future leadership roles in probably in a couple of years, or probably a decade or so, where they will have to take over from the senior management, because no one is permanent. So that will really help you as a leader to ask open-ended, empowering questions, which is what we do in coaching, which really brings out the desired results. And I think personally, the biggest advantage would be to help whoever it is to find the answers within themselves. Because most often, I do believe that my client, or the person that you're talking to, has all the answers but lack the awareness. So asking open-ended questions might just help get the awareness, and also try to focus on the topic at hand. What do you think about it from personal branding perspective?
Yeah, like I really like this that point about asking open-ended questions. I think this is really important, and that's probably also something really helpful in feedback conversations, like in a business setting, or like if you have um, inter-team meetings. I think this could be a very good strategy to also like get the best out of the people and engage them, because Let's be honest, meetings can be so dreadful. And that is one of the points that we also want to make here, is that, we always have a choice. We always have two choices. So we can go in a meeting, we can sit there, we can get bored, we can be totally passive and walk out of it and have wasted time. Or what we can also do, the second choice, is that we say we go in there, we try to learn as much as we can, we try to get everything out of the meeting as possible so that in the end it's not wasted time. And I think that asking good questions is exactly a part of this. So if you ask the open-ended questions, if you are the person who's guiding the meeting, you can make sure that the people are getting something out of the meeting because they're active. But if you are a participant of the meeting, then asking yourself good questions is a great way of just learning new things. It also shows the leader of the meeting that you're active, that you're engaged. And that is a great way of self-marketing. However, what I also want to say is there are, like, we always say there are no wrong questions, there are no bad questions. But sometimes there are, because if bad questions, I think, is if we ask questions just to have said something, but we haven't really picked up on the conversation before, and the question just shows that you didn't pay any attention, then that's usually a bad question, at least in terms of self-marketing. So if you want to make sure that you are managing your reputation, ask questions that, again, align with the reputation that you want to have, that add to the conversation and that enhance the conversation, maybe even, and something that shows that you are an active participant of it. So from that perspective, uh, asking good questions really has two big roles in meetings. And just like maybe just try it once and observe how it change, like how the conversation changes when you really put an effort into questions. And this is also one of the parts where being prepared comes in again, because if you are prepared, you can already write down some questions where you think that could be good, or things that you wanted to ask anyway. And then you already have them at hand. So this, it ties all together. Yeah, so this was the point 3, or takeaway 3. So takeaway 4 is don't criticize, but reframe. So big one, big one, big one, big one. Maybe again, like Shreyas, do you want to start and I add at the end?
Sure. This is again one other thing that we really, as a coach, don't do. We don't criticize our clients for having whatever feeling they just shared, or whatever emotions they are feeling. But instead of criticism, it's always preferable to use reframing, where you just reflect back what has been said, reframe that, and again, just reflect it back to the client or to your subordinate in a way which will help them understand what they just said. And second, it will also, when you're reflecting back, there is every opportunity for the other person to understand how it felt when they talked. So most often we just talk and we don't realize what feelings or what emotions we are attaching to it. And sometimes people might mean a totally different thing, but when they talk, the meaning would be misinterpreted. So this is a great way where reframing will help, number one, understand the correct meaning, and also feel what how the other person felt when you talk the same lines. Criticism, in a way, if it is constructive, well and good, it really progress, it really fosters progress, help or motivate your subordinate or your client to really think and develop. But when most often criticism is accompanied by anger, resentment, or any other negative feeling, and people would not be in the right mindset to receive criticism when being directly told. So you might want to just have a go around, start reframing so that they reflect back and they have an opportunity to really understand what went wrong or what we think was wrong and how could they have um, fared better. So it's a great way to just maintain the overall positivity by reframing rather than criticizing, because most often we do not have patience as well, and especially since it's a virtual setup, there's every chance that the communication might not be as clear as it would in a face-to-face meeting. So often meanings can be misinterpreted. So rather than criticizing, we can always use reframing and reflection to just drive a point and make it seem logical, not rude. And third, we do not attach any ego when we are reframing because we are just taking the statement from what the person said, reframing it and reflecting back. So this is why we just use reframing as one of the key skills in coaching as well. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. Like, especially with the ego, when the ego comes into place, and it almost always does if the criticism is not constructive, right? Then it's just automatic. Like, everyone reacts defensive. It's just human to react defensive. And if you have someone who's defensive, then you didn't gain anything. You actually lost, because the whatever you wanted to get out of the meeting, it's kind of lost from that moment that the person gets defensive, because that's the moment when we shut ourselves off and then just don't listen anymore. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why it's so important to really think about when do we use criticism, and how do we bring it across. And there, I just from my side, I wanted to add, it's really, it's key to invest in communication. It's absolute key to invest in really understanding how you can master such situations. It absolutely changes your life. There's a couple of books that I want to share here. I'm also going to put links afterwards. One is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I've mentioned that
Mm,
also in the last session. It talks a lot about exactly um, these communication situations that you can master, and it describes the effects that you have when you don't criticize, and with really great examples. And another book that's really great about this is relatively new. It's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was a chief negotiator at the FBI, and he's really talking about how can you negotiate and still get what you want without hurting the other people. And this is kind of exactly the skills you want to use in a meeting, right? So you want to make it, if you have to criticize or if you have to say something that you're not happy about, the way you can use that situation for self branding is that you don't criticize, but that you give solutions, right? This is a way how a great communicator solves these kind of problems. Like, you can reflect, like Shreya said, which is a great strategy. You can reframe, or you give a solution. So you can, for example, if your employee is not doing a great job, then find out why, or give solutions how things can be made different or it can be done different, without telling them, hey, you're doing a shitty job, but saying, oh, have you tried this or this? I've heard this working really well. This is a different way, and it's motivating your employee or your team member, because they believe or they think you believe in them, instead of doing it like with the thumb the hard way. So this is a great way. Again, it's investing in communication is so important. That we have this speaking insightfully, which is a big part. Asking good questions is a big part, and not criticizing is a big part. So this self-marketing in meetings has a lot to do with understanding how to communicate effectively. And so I think from there we're coming already to our last point that also has to do with communication, but with passive communication. And we've talked about this last week already a little bit. We just wanted to pick it up here as well because it's an important point, and that's being a good listener. And yeah, so I would give the word to Shreyas. Maybe you can say a little bit, and then I add
Active listening is something that I think should be developed as an habit for anyone who is a key decision maker or a C-suite executive, because how many other times we stress it, it's not enough, because people really need to have this innate talent to both actively and intuitively listen to either their subordinates, or it might be their customers, clients, or whoever it is, because ultimately by listening is when you really understand the problems that are going on. And sometimes you won't be even aware of what the problem might be, because that is how the challenges work. It's no longer finding a problem and giving a solution. It's to just understand where, or probably anticipate what might go wrong and have a backup plan ready right from the step one. So, in order to be really able to understand what is being told to you, or what you seem to listen to, it is very important that all of us develop this habit of active and intuitive listening, because most often you don't even need to go deeper. Just by listening to your employees, you will be made aware of some key things that you might have to improve. There will always be pointers offered, and once again it ties to you showing interest, and also showing that you're involved in the discussion, and that you're paying attention to what was being discussed, and you've picked up the key things that need immediate attention. Because corporate world, it's just moving fast, technology grows fast, so you might want to be on top of your game each and every time. And one such skill which helps you stay on top is active and intuitive listening.
absolutely. Like, and it's not just like the big topics, right? How technology changes, but it's also in the meeting itself. If you're following along, if you're a good listener, then you find the moments in which you can add your expertise, and that makes again a good communicator who understands when to say what and when to be quiet. And I think you can only do that if you are a good listener, if you're an active listener, how you've also described it. Because yeah, that's when you see, oh yeah, this is the moment where I can shine because I have something to say here. And again, also if you can facilitate, I think a meeting as a good listener, it's easier to guide it because you get an idea of who plays which role in the room, and you can activate the different people in a way that you facilitate a good discussion. And again, I think this is only possible if you're a good listener. So yeah, that was already the fifth tip. I love this discussion today. I think it was great, especially because meetings are a huge topic. There are two more books that I want to recommend. I'm also going to put them in again. They have great insight on meeting culture. And one is Essentialism by Grab McKeown. I don't know if I say his name right. I hope so. And then Death by Meeting, and that's by Patrick Lencioni. That's also a really great book about meeting culture. So if you're struggling with meetings in general, I think those are two great books to read to just get an idea of how to handle it. And yeah, and the rest, how you can make or how you can position yourself in a meeting well. I think this is something we've discussed today in quite detail.
Yeah, so just to close this off, I think these 5 points not just help with meeting, but will also help you develop a growth mindset where you're open to receiving suggestions and at the same time you're giving out feedback constructively, and it helps you be ready and be prepared in any situation, especially when you're in the services segment and you need to identify the pain points of your clients even when they're not aware. I think that is where these 5 tips will really help. And finally, before we say goodbye, I just want to wish those who are celebrating Thanksgiving today a very happy Thanksgiving, and also express gratitude on behalf of both of us for taking time to show up live and for sending in your questions, your comments, and feedback. So we really appreciate that. And yeah, just thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I have nothing to add to this. Thank you so much for for listening, for being a part of this. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you again next week. So take care. Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.